Watergate scandal. Abstract. The Watergate scandal was a major political scandal in the United States involving the administration of President Richard Nixon from 1972 to 1974 that led to Nixon's resignation. The scandal stemmed from the Nixon administration's attempts to cover up its involvement in the June 17, 1972, break-in of the Democratic National Committee headquarters in Washington, D.C., at the Watergate office building. After the 5 perpetrators were arrested, the press and the Department of Justice connected the cash found on them at the time to the Committee for the Re-election of the President. Further investigations, along with revelations during subsequent trials of the burglars, led the House of Representatives to grant the U.S. House Judiciary Committee additional investigative authority to probe into certain matters within its jurisdiction, and led the Senate to create the U.S. Senate Watergate Committee, which held hearings. Witnesses testified that Nixon had approved plans to cover up his administration's involvement in the burglary, and that there was a voice-activated taping system in the Oval Office. Throughout the investigation, Nixon's administration resisted its probes, and this led to a constitutional crisis. The Senate Watergate hearings were broadcast gavel-to-gavel nationwide by PBS and aroused public interest. Several major revelations and egregious presidential actions obstructing the investigation later in 1973 prompted the House to commence an impeachment process against Nixon. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in United States v. Nixon that Nixon had to turn over the Oval Office tapes to government investigators. The Nixon White House tapes revealed that he had conspired to cover up activities that took place after the burglary and had later tried to use federal officials to deflect attention from the investigation. The House Judiciary Committee approved 3 articles of impeachment against Nixon for obstruction of justice, abuse of power, and contempt of Congress. With his complicity in the cover-up made public upon release of the tapes, Nixon's political support completely eroded. With that, his impeachment by the House and conviction by the Senate became a certainty, and so he resigned from office under Section 1 of the 25th Amendment on August 9, 1974. He is the only U.S. president to have resigned from office. On September 8, 1974, his successor, Gerald Ford, pardoned him. There were 69 people indicted and 48 people, many of them top Nixon administration officials, convicted. The metonym Watergate came to encompass an array of clandestine and often illegal activities undertaken by members of the Nixon administration, including bugging the offices of political opponents and people of whom Nixon or his officials were suspicious, ordering investigations of activist groups and political figures, and using the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Central Intelligence Agency, and the Internal Revenue Service as political weapons. The use of the suffix "gate" after an identifying term has since become synonymous with public scandal, especially in politics. This project compresses information gathered from Wikipedia in video format. Why should I watch it? Studies prove that reading while listening improves comprehension, increases speed as well as expands vocabulary and enhances fluency. Provide your feedback on the comments section. Support the channel by subscribing and liking the video, thanks.